My name is Danny Hajjar. This is our group's podcast. I'm with Joe Dempsey, Brandon Wade, and Ian Markey. We're going to start off with question number 1. In what ways are the specifics of rowing, the technique, the boats, the teamwork required, metaphors for what the boys, particularly Joe, learn about life and friendship over the course of the novel? Ian, what do you think about that?
Rowing is a highly skilled sport. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of practice. You have to get your technique down really well, and you have to be really in sync with the other boys. The only way to do that is by knowing them really well and befriending them. So it kind of shows that he had to learn to know them more than just in the boat. He had to know them on a personal level.
I agree with that, but I think that personally for Joe, it was very hard, especially with the upbringing that he had, getting kicked out of his house by his stepmother, and he taught himself when he was younger not really to trust anyone or not to put his faith in anyone else.
Yeah, because of how many times he's been let down.
Yeah, and that was what he had to do most with the rowing team, since it's all about synchronization and teamwork and friendship.
Yeah, when it comes to rowing, when Joe learns to trust all of his crewmates, you can see that when they all have faith in one another, it just comes together, and they just seem to be perfect at rowing in its own way, and it just seems easy for them when they do eventually make it to the Olympics. It's almost like they were just meant to be there.
Yeah, it's almost like his team became his family after and then his team pulled all in the same direction after his family just basically abandoned him and left him for his own, and didn't let him to see them and get to know them.
Also, just to add on, the whole team had a little bit of dysfunction in their own separate ways. Some kid, another kid, Shorty Hunt, was a little he had anxiety and doubted himself a lot, which did not help the cause for teamwork.
Yeah.
And there were other people that didn't help the cause. That Don Hume, when he got sick during the Olympics, that was he couldn't control that.
Exactly.
But it's still the whole team had a little bit of dysfunction, and the fact that they all overcame that in some way and won the gold medal, I thought was truly amazing.
It's mentioned in the book that every member of the team saw themselves as the worst rower, so that just kind of shows you that
they didn't have faith in themselves.
They were all insecure about themselves.
Yeah, they didn't believe in their own skills. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just to piggyback off what Ian is saying, I feel that even though in the beginning it was kind of tough because they're just starting university and still don't know anyone that well, to come together and just be able to make this rowing team something beyond what most people see in a rowing team, because when all the pieces come together, it paints the perfect picture.
Basically, they became the best rowing team in the world.
Exactly, at the time. So I just feel like it's kind of amazing what, despite all the
problems
that they've had in the past, to be able to come together and do something like that.
Joe felt pretty left out at Washington, and during his after his freshman year, I think it was beginning of his sophomore year, and so the fact that he found out everyone else came from a middle class background like him, even though he went to I guess an elite college, where he thought everyone was elitist and preppy.
Yeah.
Once he found that out, I guess he felt
a little more comfortable.
Felt more comfortable and fit in better.
Yeah. I agree with you. Wade, what you were saying, that coming from a rural background, not having much money to yourself, kind of just living off of odd jobs just to get by day to day, and then you come to university such as Washington to find out people in the same predicament as you go there is just kind of more easily to fit in to the scene there.
Yeah.
So I think that only helps the cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned that Joe didn't know anyone on the team, and a lot of people in his boat after freshman year didn't know each other, and so they were constantly coming in third in every practice race, and so they were bumped down. But after like a couple summers where he worked on the dam with two of the other members in his boat, and he got to know them a lot better, and he started knowing his team, they quickly bumped back up to first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go on to question number 2. Rowing is a sport that is heavily affected by the weather, from heat waves to blizzards to strong winds. Brown uses historical weather conditions to add context to various races. In what ways does the weather he describes mirror the character's internal thoughts or feelings?
Yeah, I just kind of want to start off with this one because I think a very plain example is just the Olympics. Like their final race, they were in lane 6. It was the worst lane to have during that race. The water was very choppy and rough. The wind was blowing hard that day. I feel like that represents how all the rowers are feeling because they're in the worst lane. That's the Olympics. They just have so much anxiety and they're stressed out because they want to do good. They want to be the best. But then you have all these disadvantages to the race. So now it's just pure skill that they just have to use. And I just feel like that kind of mirrors how Brown describes the weather for the scene of the Olympics, like that one race.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he used like bad weather to describe bad feelings upon the
Yeah.
racers. Like even though that's probably what went through their heads was when there was bad weather, like for say rain, when it was raining when they were racing, they were not feeling happy at all.
Exactly,
Like someone probably went through a problem before that time or whatever, and no one was probably feeling it at the time, which is why they came in third place prior
Yeah.
a bunch. So I think that's how the weather primarily affected their rowing.
Yeah, I think the weather was like sort of connected to their life. Like everybody controls like their own life, which is the boat, I guess you could say. And like the weather is like everyone else in your life. It's affecting you, but in the end, you still have like the final decision on like how your life goes and what you do in life.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Ian, what do you think about
Well, in their first race in Poughkeepsie, which they had never won, Aloe Buxton had never had a team win. The waves were very choppy, and the boys weren't very used to that. They were used to rain, but they weren't used to the choppy water, and so that took a lot of effort on their part to be able to overcome the waves and not catch any crabs in the race.
Yeah.
And I think that all this bad weather and all like the hard times they face is what really like brought their team together in the overall end, which is why they began to trust each other. For like when you're saying the choppy waves, they had to trust each other to row efficiently throughout the race.
Exactly.
And they had to rely on each and every one of them, which was a true test of reliability and trust in your teammates. Because if the weather was like smooth sailing the entire way, I don't think they would have grown as close as they did grow with all the bad weather.
Exactly, yeah, because they would be more like stagnant, more constant. They would just get comfortable in their abilities until, but then when a challenge comes across them, they would get sidetracked.
They had to face challenges throughout the entire way.
Exactly.
Around the middle of the book, it's mentioned that in Washington, it was really rainy that season. And so the boys were missing a lot of practices because the rain and the winds were too much. But on the days they could row, when it was raining, the boats would fill up with water. And so they really practiced their teamwork and their efforts as a team, bailing out the boat in between races very rapidly.
Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah.
That was our group podcast. Thank you.